Welcome to the Podfather podcast. You can find all my episodes on podfather.me. You can find all my 6 podcasts. You can see it if you're watching on BitChute, Spotify, YouTube, or Rumble. Scan the QR code or go to icon.com. If you're looking for virtual assistants, go to va.world. My guest in New Hampshire in the USA. He's the host of 2 shows. He's done over 2,000 episodes with one and 143, I believe, with the other. He's got one with a co-host. It's the New Next Level University, and the other one is Podcast Growth University. They're both on the top of the charts, which is always good. So please welcome Kevin Palmieri. Did I do it justice?
You did it justice. I appreciate you having me, my friend. I'm excited to chat. Any opportunity to talk about podcasting is always fun, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this because, you're doing group kind of coaching as well. That's not something I've done, but there was people suggesting it, so I'd like to touch on that. But also, like the co-hosting, because there's times I have seen a lot of people that it didn't work, but obviously 2,000 episodes. Have you been co-hosting from the very start, or?
So my business partner and the co-host, Alan, interviewed me on his YouTube channel in 2017. That was my first exposure to kind of this whole world. I started a solo podcast after that. Then when I decided to go all in and leave my job and do this, him and I partnered up. So at this point, we've probably done, out of the 2010 episodes we've probably done 1,990 together. So it started off with just me, and then it got to the point where it made sense for us to do it together because we both had very similar goals. And I think that's a really big piece of it. Goals, values, beliefs, it all aligns, which is obviously helpful.
So what I'd like to cover is, did you set up your expectations of who doing what? Because what I've seen, and it's like I kind of let people know if I'm coaching people that are going in together, is kind of make a plan if it goes south. Because a lot of times what happens, and obviously it's not the situation for you that you've done so many, it's fantastic. But what happens sometimes is people go in with expectations. They both think they're doing different things. One does 90% of the work, the other does 10. And then if it breaks up, they both want to hold the baby, and it ends up just going into the bin, which is a shame because I've seen some brilliant shows. Both won't give it up and they both walk away. So how do you make it work?
Yeah, it's very interesting because Alan was essentially coaching me and mentoring me from the very beginning. So I tried to go in from a place of humility and say, okay, what is Alan really good at and what am I really good at? Luckily, he is a visionary. So he is thinking the future, the future, the future, the future. I'm a really good day-to-day operator. I don't really care about tomorrow. I care about getting everything I need to get done today, and then tomorrow is a new day. So in the beginning, it was Alan was going to try to get the guests. He was going to build the business behind the scenes. I was going to do the audio editing. I was going to do the video editing. I was going to do a lot of that logistical stuff. And it just worked really well from the beginning. And then we just leaned into it more and more and more. And even to this day, like, this is a really good example. I edited somebody's episode this morning. And I am still kind of in that phase where we have a team and we have a bunch of clients, but I still pick and choose where I want to be under the hood, experiencing what it's like to do audio editing and video editing, because I still enjoy it, where Alan is out building the business all day. So we're still doing it to a more exponential level at this point. And I think the other thing that's super important to state is it's way bigger than just the podcast, and it's way bigger than us. It's not about me. It's not about Alan. It's about adding value and impacting as many people as possible. And I think that helps us stay really humble because we're better together than we would be separately. And that's something we've known for a long time. But if anything, it's really just proved itself over and over at this point.
Just curious, like, have you changed the scale of the amount of episodes that you've put out? And did you notice that? Because like with me, say the speaking, I was doing one and I was saying, maybe I'll double my audience if I do 2, and I tripled it. And I was kind of, it made a big difference. And just what was your journey?
We started with 1. I think we did that for like a year. Our first year, I think we had 1,000 listens. It wasn't great. It was good for us because we started and it was like, all right, cool. Then the second year, I think we went to 2 or 3 episodes a week. And I think we went from 1,000 listens to 25,000 the next year. Then eventually it was like, all right, let's add another episode. Let's add another episode until we got to daily. And I think as of today, we've been doing daily episodes since it's been like 1,400 days. So however many years that is, almost 4 years. My suggestion is always, I would never suggest anybody do a daily show because at that point, I think it's way more about the skill acquisition than it is building an audience. Somebody has to be in love with what you're talking about if they're going to listen to it every single day. I mean, that is a big, big, big ask. So I think when you get to like 3 episodes a week, that's probably where you're going to start reaching the maximum that you're going to get in terms of just pure views and listens. After that, somebody has to be obsessed with what you're talking about. So yeah, I don't ever suggest people do it the way we did. And I think the other thing too, and I'm starting to realize this more and more, I'm doing this now as much to get really good at speaking as anything else. I mean, I always am focused on adding value, but for me, I want to do an episode every day because that's an opportunity to get better every day. Even if somebody said that's not good for your listens, that's okay. We're just going to keep going and we're going to do it forever. So eventually it'll catch up. So I think that's an important thing too, is if you're starting just for listens, your approach is going to be different, potentially. If you're starting just for dollars, your approach is going to be different. We're really focused on getting as good as humanly possible. So the more episodes we do, the better for that, at least.
Like I've seen some of the people now that are doing like 6 shows a day. And the thing is, like, I know they're trying to do it to be at the top of charts and a platform. And yeah, that's kind of bragging, right? But the problem is, nobody's going to listen to 6 of your shows every day and they could miss the gold. And it's better to, even if you're doing it and you've the time, then you can take a back step and you've got such a backlog that you can get them out. But, I mean, obviously if they're 5 minutes, you can do a few, but
Yeah.
There's a lot of people now and they're just churning them out. And what I've noticed, because, I help people get on shows as well, so they do the tours. And what I've noticed is a lot of them, they're just turning up. They don't even know anything about the guests. So it's just, and like, they're just kind of, thanks very much, goodbye, 15 minutes, and that's my time. And they're missing the point of having an excellent conversation, because at the end of the day, when someone enjoys your conversation, says, "Ooh, these guys know what they're talking about," they'll come back. Whereas because there's constantly people coming and going, and if they're just listening to somebody that's just shooting the breeze, they know he's shooting the breeze, and it's not the same thing. And I think they're missing that point.
I agree. Well, I've been on shows before where in the introduction, the person has literally said to me, honestly, I don't care about the audience. I just want to network with people. I don't want to be here. I'm here to add value. I'm not here to network. I want to add value. I guess that's what they want. And there's a certain goal based on that, but I would never predict any level of success for that person, especially in terms of building a real authentic audience and community. People can see through that, to your point. So yeah, I think there's, for us, this is a dream. Like, this was a dream come true for me to be a full-time podcaster and be able to do this all the time. There's 7 days a week. I want to get good at this. I want to add as much value as possible. If I'm going to tell the audience they can get a little bit better every day, I want to be there helping them do it. So that's all in alignment. But what I will say is I do believe oftentimes what's best for the host is not necessarily what's best for business. And potentially what's best for business is not necessarily what's best for the host. So I think we're an example of that, where it probably is hurting our listens to do an episode every day, but we've come to terms with we're okay with that. The business has grown a ton, so we're good there. It's always a give and take, and you have to figure out what matters most to you at the end of the day.
It's worked for John Doom. I don't know how many thousands he's at, but I mean, I know you pay I think something like $3,500 to go on his show, and he's doing a one a day. So that's a lot of bucks at the end of the month. Plus, he's got other things. That's not the only kind of monetization that he's doing. So.
Yeah. Well, he's a good example. He's a good example. And there's other shows that come out once a week. There's some shows that are bi-weekly. There's some shows that do seasons, like true crime stuff. There's a lot of different approaches. You just have to make sure that the approach is based on the outcomes that you're looking for.
Just on the seasons, just for those listening that decide, hey, I'm going to just take a break. I did up with the speaking after 2 years. I was like, I take the Christmas off, and the Christmas ended up being 2 months. I came back thinking, yeah, they're all waiting for me. I never told them. Biggest mistake I've ever done is like, if you're going to have a summer break or a Christmas break or whenever, you just let them know, hey, this is season 1. It's finishing. We'll be back in 3 months or something like that. So people know not to remove you from the thing.
Yep. Great point.
So the next one, pre-calls. Do you do pre-calls? And the reason I'm asking is, like, one of the good, he's my business partner. He's the Brain Gym Fitness guy. And yeah, he's sick of doing the pre-calls because 1, they don't turn up, or 2, they're just kind of not really being professional about it. They're just kind of like walking along having the phone. Or one guy done the pre-call that was 4 months before the call, and then nothing was done about the conversation of the pre-call. So I'm not really a fan of them either, but, like I go on a few shows. And I was on one this week, and it's the first time I went, oh, this is good. And I was telling Mr. Wu Yu, he's in Pod Match as well. But he was really going deep and making loads of notes, and it was all about the audience. And I said, okay, this makes sense. And he wanted to do it that we do the call as fast as possible, while it's fresh in his head as well. I mean, he made the notes, but I mean, could be like me as well. Sometimes I have plenty of notes, and then if the person doesn't turn up, then you're trying to figure out where it was, and you have to go through the whole process again. So what's your thoughts on the pre-call? Is it something you do, or?
So we don't have guests anymore. When we did have guests from a host perspective, we never did a single pre-call. But I also understand there was no pod match, and there was no matchmaker back then. So it was really like, you go find somebody you want to interview. At that point, you had already done a good amount of research, so you knew whether or not they vibed with you. So it was a little bit different. As a guest, as of today, I'm close to 1,000 guest spots, which I'm super privileged and grateful for. I would say probably 25% of them have required a pre-call. And I always do them. For me, I mean, worst case scenario, they don't show up. Okay. I have plenty of stuff to do. I'll move on to the next thing. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I think a lot of it is because the host is nervous to get into a recording, realize the person isn't who they thought they were, and then they're unsure if they're going to be able to right the ship, so to speak. So I think a lot of it is certainty. And I think if you're a new host and you've never really done interviews before, all good. I think it's worth doing. I think eventually that can be training wheels where you say, you know what? Let me research Roy. Roy has a bunch of podcasts. I could find out almost everything about you if I listen to your podcast. I go to your website. I'll have a pretty good idea. So yeah, I think you have to let go of the training wheels when you get to a certain point. But as somebody who has been on a bunch of them from the guest perspective, I'm always open to them, because I think anything I can do to bring certainty to the host is always good. As a host, I never did one. And I think the other reason, and the important piece, is when you get to a certain level, and when you're interviewing people that are big time guests, they don't have time for pre-calls. They barely have time for the 30-minute interview. They're not going to do a pre-call. So that's something I think to be aware of as well. Eventually, that is not even going to be an option, depending on the level of guest that you're trying to get to.
What's your thoughts on, because there's a load after coming into the space, and what we find is, and this is with a lot of different people, there's a lot, there are no shows, they're cancelling at the last minute. There's even one of my friends know like this, that I'm getting on the shows. He's taking screenshots to go, hey, I'm waiting for you, I'm in the room and all this. And they don't even respond. It's like very unprofessional. Like, it's getting worse, like, which is a shame. And thankfully with my shows is not too bad, but the crypto, and I think it's because it was people earned money easy, very high flake rate. And like they'd flake and say, "Oh, I was called on a meeting," kind of thing, and then they do it again. I'm sick, and then it's like they're the sickest people in the industry. And I just, I mean, I don't know what your experience when you were actually doing tours, but you've probably experienced a bit of that, have you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We actually created like a standard operating procedure because there were so many no-shows. I wait 5 minutes. If I don't hear anything, if nothing happens, I go. I just move to the next meeting. And the reason is, to your point, in the beginning, I would wait 10, 15, 20 minutes and I would get no response. It was like, I just wasted that 20 minutes. I understand life happens. So if somebody no shows me and says, "Oh my goodness, I missed it," I don't really get offended as long as they don't get offended that I only waited 5 minutes. That's kind of the give and take. But I think the interesting thing to understand is as the barrier to entry lowers, starting a podcast is easier than it's ever been. In terms of the information, in terms of the data, like you can figure out how to start it. But that doesn't necessarily mean you know the rest of it or you're super committed to growth. You're super committed to the process. So I think the flake rate will continue to increase, unfortunately, just like I think the failure rate is going to continue to increase because it's just way easier to start. Anybody can go to the gym and sign up. That's the easy part. But I mean, there's literally business models that run on that. That's Planet Fitness's business model. We'll get you to sign up. It's such a low payment that it's a pain in the butt to come in to cancel it. You'll just let it go forever. If you come, awesome. If you don't, we still get the money. So they're quite literally reliant upon that flake rate. So yeah, I think it's something to prepare for. And if you're somebody who's going to be doing a lot of guesting, just make sure you have your little SOP. Have a Google Doc that has something that's copy and pasteable. Hey, Roy, I waited in the Zoom room today for 5 minutes. You didn't show up. I just moved on to my next thing. Happy to reschedule. Here's my link. Let me know if that's aligned. Boom. Then you're on to the next thing. And I think you just get numb to it eventually over time.
And then I go 3-strike rule. So twice they
Yeah, that's good.
Are you the same? Or yeah, you don't let them keep doing it, I presume. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple times, and it's like, all right, this is not. It's not aligned. I feel like this person either doesn't take their platform seriously, right? That's another big piece of it too. Out of the 1,000 shows I've been on as a guest, 15-20% of them are no longer in production. So think about that. That's another. If maybe that's a telltale sign that this isn't the type of show that's going to be super consistent, super committed, and they might not be around in a year. So maybe depending on where you want to put your time, it's not worth it. So yeah, that's another thought process.
And there's another one to that as well, because when someone's new, you don't know, like sometimes I'll go in and I look at their LinkedIn and I see their strategy and I go, no, these guys, and I just see how maybe their form and different things. I think now, because like with all my shows, the top 10 always keep chugging away because people will go back to the start. So you can get massive downloads, but at the same time, then it could be they'll throw the towel in after 3 or 10 shows. So you could have just said, all right, but usually they stay up unless they go to a paid platform. If they're with, like, say, Spotify or some of the others, and I think most of them leave them up anyway. They're kind of, even if they're not paying them more. But which it's Buzzsprout you're hosting with, yeah, and are both your shows on that? I know the bigger one is, yeah, they're both on. And from the start, you've been with them?
No, in the beginning, we used SoundCloud because I didn't know what I was doing. So in the beginning, it was like SoundCloud, cool. Then I think when we were like, I don't know, 200 or 300 episodes in, we switched over. And then we've been using Buzzsprout ever since. I'm a huge fan. I just like the customer service. There's something about the fact that I can email somebody and they'll get back to me within a day or the same day. You need that when you're doing so many things. You need an easy connection to, hey, for some reason this is going wrong, that type of stuff. I also really like the analytics. I've worked with a lot of clients who have different hosts, and like Kajabi is a good example. Their analytics are just terrible. They're not good because they're not a podcast host. They're a bunch of other things that realized, people want to host their podcast. Let's figure out a way to do that. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Buzzsprout. Recommend it all the time to clients. It's affordable. Customer service is good.
That's on with Spotify and Podbean. Podbean are incredible for
Nice.
like within an hour usually they come back to you and fantastic, and they're always good, and it's very easy to share to different platforms as well. Like even Samsung TV and things like that people wouldn't even think about. They have all the different links. They're helping you to grow. But like I've seen the Buzzsprout just through clients because they give me access and stuff like that, and I like it as well. But with Spotify, it was Anchor. They were brilliant as well. But once Spotify, no, sometimes it could be 2 weeks, and it's like it's a shame. And I always like my thing was because I put up the video, and it was always kind of like competitive advantage because they're competing with Apple. But I don't think that's how it works. So I'm looking at probably moving on from there. Like even the numbers, like there's times I go, nah, that's not right. That's not right. I'm like loads in the charts in like 10 countries, 20 countries, and it's not showing up. And then sometimes I write them and then they just jump it. Like, and you're going, that's not right. Like, but you mentioned the numbers at the start, and I'm glad you did that because you were like saying, first year 1,000, second year 25,000. Because I remember I was at 3 weeks or so. I was going over to get to the first 100, and I was, did you listen to it yet? Did you listen to it yet? And then it was like the 1,000. But later it's kind of like, when you hit 1 million or whatever, 100,000, whatever, you just kind of, it's no longer about the numbers. It's just about the passion. And it was it the same for you? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so we crossed $1 million and 1 million listens on the same day.
Nice.
I think it was sometime last year. And number one, and I say this all the time, if you're a podcaster, I know you most likely want to get to $1 million and 1 million listens, 1,000%. Just understand that it's probably not going to feel the way you thought, because the day before you're going to be at 999,000, whatever, most likely. So it's almost like you experience it every day more the closer you get to it. But yeah, to your point, now the podcasts are always going to be a thing. We're going to do an episode every day for Next Level University for as long as humanly possible. I'm going to do an episode every week for Podcast Growth University for as long as humanly possible. But because of the podcast, we just have so many business opportunities now. And that's the revenue that drives the business. So we have a full-time audio editing team. We have a full-time video editing team. Okay, cool. That gets paid for through the business revenue. We have somebody in the Facebook group, right? So because of that, I'm able to come here and do this and then go do whatever the next thing is. And Alan's able to do what he does because of the revenue of the business. It's a weird thing. The podcast, we've never done ads. We don't do sponsorships. We don't do affiliates. That's just not the way we chose to do it. Everything that we've made from a financial standpoint is what I consider indirect, right? If we have 10,000 listens on our episode versus 1,000, it doesn't affect how much we make because that's not the way it's set up. But that also means that we have to focus as much on everything else as the podcast. So that's a big piece of it for us. The podcast is a really good opportunity creator for us, as opposed to, we get paid $50 per 1,000 listens, hypothetically.
Exactly. I mean, people don't realize that it's not worth doing that. And I mean, like what you're doing, like, because if, you're having a lot of clients doing the editing, loads of them are happy for you to do that, for creating the shorts, posting on the social media. They're delighted, and especially when you've got the experience, you go, look, we know how to do it. We know how to get the numbers. And everybody wins that way then, right? Like that's similar. I mean, I do that. I've got the BA, and that's the way it works for us.
Well, there's certain people that are always going to pay for that, right? There's certain clients that we work with that they make plenty of money. They're gonna outsource it. It's just gonna happen. So it's about finding the right person and finding the right price, and then the beautiful thing is, if they say, oh, you also do social media stuff? Yeah, we can take care of that. Oh, is there anything you can do with website stuff? Yeah, we can help you out with that. Probably similar to you. Somebody comes in the door for one thing, and then you realize, oh, you have this. Awesome. I think if I could give one piece of advice to podcasters out there, it would be get creative with what you think you're going to do from a monetization standpoint. Just because the quote unquote biggest shows in the world all do ads, sponsorships, and affiliates does not mean you have to / you should. I'm convinced that most indie podcasters should not rely upon ad sponsorships or affiliates for sustainable revenue, just because it's really hard to make meaningful, sustainable, predictable, injectable money from that. Even if you have 10,000 listens per month, like that's good. That's a good number. You're more likely to get clients from your podcast that pay more than ads do, in my experience, at least.
Like, I mean, I've played around with a few different affiliates, and even say Revolut or whatever. It was like I knew that somebody had signed up because they told me, and I had to tell them. And like, this is an international organization, and then they paid the commission. There's others they never paid, and I was like, hey, I know there's people interested, and this was high end stuff, and I just removed them. But there's others that worked very well, and it was like each month it was one or two sales come through. It was like $50 a sale. They were charging $250, but giving 20% commission, and it would help. But I found that the amount of time that you're doing it, it's not the best way of your time. And yeah, a lot of them, unfortunately, yeah, they can have a tracking system, but they can still not pay you. So you need to have total trust in who you're actually, working with.
Yeah, and easier said than done, right? There's a lot of people that probably wouldn't have caught that, Roy. They probably would have said, maybe they didn't sign up. So and it's still a wild west. I mean, the podcast industry is still, we don't really know what the algorithms are doing. We do to a degree, but that's not necessarily fleshed out like it is with maybe YouTube. I know it seems like it's been around forever, but there's still so many changes going on and so many things that we just don't know as podcasters. Even somebody, you and I, doing a ton of research, and I've coached hundreds of people, you've coached a ton, you've worked with a bunch of podcasters. Yeah, we have experience and I can see patterns. But sometimes clients will say, like, hey, what's the answer to this question? Nobody knows. I know like pretty well, but no, there is no check the box, this is the answer. And if so, it hasn't been released yet. So we're not entirely sure yet, is oftentimes the answer that I give.
And a lot of people are trying to create the viral video, but most of the people that have a viral, Mr. Beast is different because he's got to the level where he does one video, but he's putting millions behind it. He's got a big team. But a lot of the people that I've seen that have got a viral, they don't even know what happened, and they kept trying to replicate it, and they couldn't. And even like, I'm really trying to study the YouTube thing, and like there's different software you can use. I can get one at 20,000 views, and another can have 12. And even recently, like I had the thumbnail, the title score of 97, the thumbnail of 93. I have all the different things, all the hashtags, and then when I said this one's going to go good, it's like 16 in it. And then the team would put out a short, and I go, wow, that's doing brilliant. What did you do? They forgot to put hashtags. They just put it out. And so, like, as much as you think, I mean, you can checklist but when I looked at a lot of the people that are doing they're spending a fortune. They're split testing and split testing and split testing. And if you want to do that or get a team to do it, great, it will work. But you have to put time and money behind it. It's not a case of you get the formula, because you probably get this from all your clients as well. Like when they see you in the top of the charts, they go, tell me the secret sauce. They expect this one thing. And like recently there was a guy, like he was interviewing me, but it's like, you probably know, some people are interviewing you, they just want a free coaching call, basically. It's not about the listeners. So he's asking me, and when I tell him, it was like I sucked the energy out of his life telling me it's not one thing, and it was a lot of different things. But it's a case of getting systems in place. Not sure if that's what you figured out as well, just to, like, you just try to do things as short and as simple as possible. And even if it's outsourcing some of the stuff, have your team doing different things. But it's because you wouldn't be able to do it unless you compressed it. You wouldn't get that many shows. You wouldn't get a shows out every day because it takes so much time. And I mean, at the start, you're probably spending more time. Like, I remember the speaking, I used Audacity. I'd be taking out every and and the whole lot, and then listening again before I upload it. Then it's uploaded, and I'm checking again in case I have to take it down. Now it goes up. I use enhancement, and if something needs to go, but like, you have to do that if you're like, because I mean, with all the shows I've gotten, the same with yourself, when you're churning out. And how I realized, I'm not sure about yourself, was it through your own thing, but I was looking at like Rogan, Patrick, Bet David, and all this. Like, they're just spitting them out. They're not having these perfect things, and they're on the top of the charts. And the same, like with the music. You know, a lot of people, they have the 30 seconds or a minute at the start and the end. I tell people, all right, do what you want. It was right. But I think it actually hurts you, because if you look at the analytics, and I'm just curious, do you tell the same to your people? Like, because it sounds great, it looks professional, and here's your host, bum.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, that's something we're actually revisiting that right now with we're going to start with our show. I don't even know if it's worth having any intro. I'm starting to wonder. So I've been working with some big YouTube channels who have some of the best YouTube coaches on the planet. So I'm getting a lot of really valuable information behind the scenes. And what's working best on YouTube, to your point, is a really good title, a really good thumbnail, but the first 15 to 30 seconds have to be absolutely
explosions and great.
Yeah. Now, for us, we have a self-improvement podcast, so like there's only so much you can do with that. But I'm thinking, well, if that's what's working on YouTube, that's most likely what's working on Spotify video, we have to imagine. Why wouldn't that be what they're optimizing for on Apple and all the audio platforms? So my business partner and I have been talking about that. If nothing else, we have to make the intro shorter. So let's try to make a 10-second intro. Start with a cold open, something super powerful, something super gut punchy, something that's going to catch people. 10 to 15-second intro right into the episode, as opposed to 1 minute intro, 45-second to 1 minute guest bio read, and then the episode. You've already lost so many people. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out the balance of doing what you like to do and doing what works best. Those are often two different things. When we started this, we said we're not going to edit our episodes. I'm going to get to the place where I'm a good enough speaker where I don't say Still, occasionally it happens. But that was the thought. I want to send this off to the team, add the intro, add the midtro, add the outro, show notes, cool, video, awesome, and then we're off to the races. Versus, hey, make sure you go through the whole thing and check this, because I misspoke a bunch of times. To your point, it's not super sustainable to do that. It costs more. And if you want to be a speaker who speaks on stage, there are no edits on stage. You get one shot and there's everybody there looking at you, and you either nail it or you don't. So that's another thing we're optimizing for, is just becoming a better speaker.
And that's why I've changed it around as well, because I was inserting the intro and the outro, and I watch all the analytics, and it's like they're fast forwarding, and at the end, they're gone. Yep. Like you could have 50% or 30%, whatever it is, but it's like, I said, nah, that means they're not liking it. And with the Awakening one, I do a weekly call with a friend. We're covering kind of current events. We typically do 5 topics each. And like, I'm trying to improve it on YouTube and everything. I said, okay, we need to grab their attention. So I said, at the start, I'm telling them what we're talking about. And this week now, what we've done is we've created like graphics, and I'm just going, dunk, dunk, dunk. So it costs too much money, because I seen, there's one friend of mine, he's got a crypto business, and he's just doing shorts. Like, he's got the episodes just on YouTube. It's not a podcast. This is basically millions of views. Like, and it's new enough. Like, it's less than a year, but he's got so many bells and whistles that comes in. But that's a lot of money. It's a lot of time in doing that. So like, what we're doing is we're just the graphic, next.
Yeah.
And I've already seen people commenting that they like it, because we were asking as well. So, it's a way of doing it without spending a fortune, because you can put the shorts, you can even have like Opus Pro and all these different, there's a load of them that do the shorts for you. You still have to check it yourself unless you're getting somebody that's doing it, because that's the problem as well. You see a lot of people, they're doing the shorts and the text isn't the same as what they're saying
all the time.
And it's like, you're actually probably hurting yourself. Or they're even starting, like, have you seen that as well? Like, that's what I found, that I was looking at it, doing it myself, and I was like, it was never just as you're asking the question, and then it was always kind of in the middle, and it was like, then you were stretching it, and it was too much work.
Yeah, I was watching, I had a moment last night where I was like, I wonder if they leave the spelling mistakes in there on purpose so people think it's not AI. I had a moment. I was watching, I don't remember who it was. It was a very, 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 very successful person who has a ton of money. And it was very clear that the video was made by a person, but the captions were AI. And there was a couple mistakes. And I said, I wonder if they're just pumping so much content they don't care, or they saw the mistake and said, don't worry about it. Just leave it in. We want people to think that it's humans that are doing it and made a mistake. I'm not sure which it is. But yeah, we've seen that. I tell clients all the time, if right now you're doing an audio podcast, let's say you're doing an audio and a video podcast and you're not creating any social media content, short form video, use Opus Clip. Use whatever. Is it going to be as good as a person doing it? No. But it's more affordable and it's a really good place to start. But I don't think that's ever going to replace a human doing it. There's intuition around picking a right clip. There's stuff that a human can do that AI just can't yet, but it's better than not doing it. So I think it's worth using. To your point, make sure you double and triple check, because things get weird and wonky occasionally, but it's a good time. You just feed an entire episode in. Maybe you get 15 clips, maybe 5 are really good. Cool. I think the other thing I've seen, and I'm curious to your take, what I've seen is on social media, just promoting the podcast isn't the way to do it, at least from what I've seen and working with clients. The podcast is a piece of who you are. It's not all of you. So what I tell people all the time is I'll post a picture of me in the gym, and I'll post a picture of my wife and I or my cats. If you like that, you'll maybe follow. Then eventually you'll see a podcast clip and say, oh, he's got a podcast too. Interesting. Versus if I only post stuff about the podcast, you have to love the podcast already to follow it. So that's something that we've been testing for a while, and I've tested with a lot of clients. Don't just start a podcast and make your entire social media about the podcast. I think you can try and see what happens. I just haven't seen people have really good results with that yet.
I mean, I check everyone's social media, and it's very few gets much engagement when they're doing it like that. It's like, I mean, I've seen that myself. I put a picture of my kid and get 100 plus interactions, and sometimes you put up a podcast, you'd be lucky to get 2. But the odd time, and that's why I ask people to send me kind of pictures that are funny. I mean, it depends on the topic, if it's like the exposing fraud and corruption, you don't want to do that, but a lot of the other ones. And even I learned that from an early stage with the speaking podcast. I had a guy that does Craig Mega, and he was doing it in Italy as well, and he's done it all over Poland. And he came to my house, and we were doing the recording, and I had a tripod, and I said, "Choke me," and he's like, "What?" I said, "Nobody's gonna care for just standing next to me." And that took off, it was like, and so it's like you just have to be creative and just stick out there. But most people, they're not going. But the fact that I ask them, sometimes people send me brilliant pictures, and then I play with that as well. I have a different picture for the Spotify, a different picture for the BitChute, different picture for Rumble. And I'd even change one out this morning. I was like, okay, the Rumble's doing 10 is better than the one on YouTube, even though it's good. And I'm changing it, and I'm just watching it and just playing with it. And the thing is, not just take it for granted. If you're tracking everything, that makes it a big difference. Actually.
Yeah, that's such an important. How many times have you seen somebody starts a podcast, and then 5 years later they have the same intro, the same outro, the same artwork, everything is exactly the same. Again, strong work for sticking around for 5 years, but there hasn't been necessarily improvement along the way. You don't have to split test everything like the high level people do, right? You don't have to split test. Right now with one of our clients, when we launch a YouTube episode, we're launching with 3 thumbnails. Then we get a report based on those thumbnails, and then we split test forever. It's always happening behind the scenes. That's a full-time job though. So you don't have to do it that way, but maybe you had a thumbnail 5 years ago. What could we do to make it a little bit better? Maybe your artwork is just a little bit, you had somebody on Fiverr make it for you when you didn't have a big budget. Now you have a little more money. Cool. You could upgrade that. I think that's a really important piece of it, is just consistent improvement. It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't mean you're going to change your artwork every day, but you've probably evolved as a person, as a host, as a podcast. I think your branding and your marketing probably should too.
It's an important point on the thumbnail that a lot of people aren't aware of. Because what happens is people, they just blast out the show and then the team come along, which I was doing that at one stage. And I tried to pick a picture that it just freezes. You get the choice of 3. And then they'd come up and they do, a nice picture with highlighting a certain word, the way that people are kind of recommending. But what I heard is that when it goes out first, it goes out to your subscribers. And when you change the thumbnail, it doesn't go out again. So then the algorithms is saying, is this popular or not? So sometimes it's better to just hold off, get everything right. You can still split test because, it's worth kind of doing it that way. But don't just blast it out and then say, in a week they'll change it or we'll start creating the graphic, and you're better off holding off than putting it out because, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that for sure.
So you said you edit some of the clients. I just wonder which are all ones do you, because I edit all mine. And the reason I do it is there's nobody that is thinking like I'm thinking, because I'm reading over 100 books. I just constantly, and they would miss gold and the same with the comments. I'm interacting with the comments as well, because someone could say something that's so valuable that people don't. And I know a lot of people, they outsource everything. And I'm just curious your thoughts on that one.
Yeah. So we review our show. So we listen to the final stuff, but our team does all our audio editing, all our video editing. They post it. They do the show note. They do all that. We don't do any of that anymore. I recently, towards the end of last year, had someone doing my social media. And it was really good from a time perspective, but I felt disconnected from what was happening. I felt so, I was like, wow, I made it. Like, somebody's doing my social media. This is awesome. And then I was like, I don't know if I like this. There's certain things that I want to make sure I'm doing. And I think social media might always be one of them. I don't know. I would say this. It depends on your standards. It depends on how much you value your reputation in case something goes wrong. It depends on where your skill set lies. And it depends on how much you're trying to scale, I would say, essentially, right? Right now, we're working with 55 other podcasts. I wouldn't be able to do almost any of what I do if I was still doing our stuff every day. It's just that would be such a big bottleneck. And the team can do it faster, and they can do it better than I can. They just have way more reps than I do. So I think it's a conversation of all of that stuff. And how much money are you making? If you're making, let's say you have enough to spend like $200 a month, I would spend $200 a month on the thing that you hate the most and the thing that buys you back the most time. I would start there. But yeah, I think you can definitely over delegate. And if you have no idea, I'll use this as an example. I've worked with clients who are paying an absurd amount of money for audio editing and video editing. I'm talking thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month. The reason is they don't know what it actually takes to do it. So when someone says, well, yeah, this 15-minute video is going to take us 10 hours to edit. I don't know what you're doing in that 10 hours. I don't know if that includes your 8-hour nap, but you're kind of getting raked over the coals. So that's a little lack of awareness. So get enough awareness so you know how it works, but it might not be your place to try to master it because maybe that's not where your expertise lies. But I'm big on delegating as long as the funds are there, as long as the time makes sense, and as long as I know whoever's doing it is doing it to 80% of my standard. I'm not somebody who deals with a lot of perfectionism. So it's like, just pump it out. We'll learn from whatever mistakes we make, right? That's a big piece of it.
I take clients through that. And even if they say, I'll get somebody to do it, I encourage them to learn. So I make sure it's part of the thing. And I'll say, how do you know what they're doing is good unless you understand it yourself? And I've heard one, they were paying a lot of money and it was terrible. I was like, they're winging it. And unfortunately, this company's coming out there and they're charging hundreds of bucks for stuff and some of them just put it through the software, and like, some aren't even doing that. It's like the sound is terrible, so you need to be watching. So what I'd like to kind of finish up on, and you're doing it with coaching, group coaching, and it's a few times it came to me that people were asking, and I was like, God, the time frame, because because lots of the people that listen to me are in the state, half my podcast, it's the States or the UK and everything. And I actually, at once, I think it was on my fourth podcast, I signed up for the London Reel course, and thinking I would learn so much that I would up my game, and it was the first one that didn't go to the top of the charts because I followed their system. But I like the model of having group coaching, because we ended up doing live calls with a few of the people there, so I got great value from just connecting with people. But do you do that the people get the recording? What's the amount of people that you let into it? Because I saw the price point, it's very, very reasonable, which is it's great that the way you're doing that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. So in the beginning, we started, this is the evolution. In the beginning, we started doing group coaching. It was going to be 10 people, and it was all about self-improvement, which is what Next Level University is about. We did 15 groups of that. So it's 3 months. There's coaching calls every other week. And then on the off weeks, there's connection calls with an assistant coach, Amy. You get access to a WhatsApp group with everybody in it, myself and Alan included. And there's essentially any questions that come up, we'll answer, or Amy will answer. And then you get access to the recording. We record every call. It goes into a Google Drive folder. Only your email has access to it. Boom. We were coming on our 16th group, and so we had 8 seats filled, and all 8 people were podcasters. And Alan and I talked, and we said, what does this mean? We said, well, let's make sure the last 2 people that come are podcasters too. So that was our first group of pure podcasters. Now we're halfway, three quarters of the way through our 17th group. That's all podcasters. Same exact setup. Except now we've kind of gone in the opposite direction. Now I am on 6 coaching calls, as well as 2 of the connection calls, because I want to coach deeper. Alan is on all the coaching calls and the 2 business calls that are connection calls. So we're doing actually more time with the community members because we want it to be more valuable. Eventually, we'll have it where we have self-improvement group coaching, podcast group coaching, and then strictly business group coaching. Everything that worked from the perspective of self-improvement is starting to actually happen with podcasting and podcast coaching, and it's going to be the same thing with business eventually. I think the one bit of advice I'd give to anybody who's doing it is just make sure there's a very clear promise. It's way easier to fill groups of podcasters than it ever was self-improvement, because by the end of this, you'll have the habits, awareness, and skill sets to grow and monetize your podcast. That's way more specific of a promise than you'll grow internally. It's harder to sell that. So yeah, it's something that's worked really, really well with us. And to your point, that we want to make sure the price point's affordable. I always advise that. For us, it's not, let me charge a little bit less than I do for one-on-one coaching and just multiply it by 10. That's not why we started it. We didn't start it to make 10 times the revenue. We started it to have 10 times the impact. And it's worked really well, for sure.
Do you actually record it, so if somebody doesn't make it, that they get a recording? Oh, you do?
Yep.
Okay. I know some people were afraid of doing that because basically, somebody then goes away and starts sharing all their contents and things like that. But
I mean, the content is important and the content is valuable, and yeah, but I'm not really worried about anybody taking it and teaching people. Like, you want to grind as hard as we do, good luck, good luck. But yeah, I think the other thing too is we have a very, very healthy, very, very positive community. So I'm not really worried about that happening. We have a great, great community of just positive, good people. We're very, very focused on that. In our last group coaching, we had somebody who just wasn't good for the group, and we kicked him out. Said, if you want your money back, we'll give you your money back. It's all good. It's just, right now you're making this group feel less connected than we want. And it's our job to facilitate a really positive experience. And we just don't think it could be as positive with you in the group, unfortunately. So we're big on that. I mean, that's a huge piece of it for sure.
Yeah, I think most people, whether it's business, podcasting, or whatever, firing a client, it's the best thing you can do because you never go, oh, I wish I never done that. Every time you do it, you go, I wish I had done it sooner.
Yes, 100%. I couldn't agree with that more.
What I like actually is what you say. It's something that I started doing, and I'd like to people love it. Is WhatsApp connection, because sometimes you can have a call once a week, depending on some people want to go full steam ahead, probably yourself, others that like to take their time, get everything perfect, but
Yep.
when they have something on their mind and they can just send a message or a voicemail, they love that because it's easy to respond to, but then they're getting value. And because I believe that that's the way that I operate, then they get the different services, for the promotion and stuff like that. And I can see it with yourself as well. You build trust, and then they know that you're not just in it for a quick buck, that you're there to support them, and you'd love to see them at the top of the charts. I mean, I don't care if somebody is getting it, 10 times, 100 times more downloads than me. That's a success.
Right. 100%. And I think now more than ever, there's something about proximity. We like working close. I think humans like working closely with people. So if it's okay, you get one coaching call with me per month and then that's it. So much happens over the course of a month. I want somebody to be able to message me and say, hey, I have a big guest on and I'm nervous. Any advice? I love that. I'll send you an audio message. I'm super passionate about that. And I feel like you and I align nicely on that. So yeah, there's a lot of ways you can set yourself apart. If you're a podcaster who's maybe you have a podcast about business and you're a business coach, there are some things that you can do that other people just aren't willing to do. And that will differentiate you from other people. And that could be your unique advantage that you have that they don't. So again, I think my message to everybody is stay creative, because so many of the opportunities that you might get might be different opportunities than you expected, but it doesn't mean that it's not a good way to go or that you shouldn't capitalize on them.
Listen, Kevin, thoroughly enjoyed it. You might let the listeners know where they can find you.
Yeah. Next Level University is the everyday podcast. Podcast Growth University is very niche, like this one with Roy, podcasting about podcasting. I always say, if you have any questions, if there's anything I touched on that I didn't answer fully, my email is kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. I'm happy to answer questions, whatever. I'm not going to tell you to pay me for answers. Anything I can do to add value, I want to add value. So that's the best place to reach me.
Perfect. I'll make sure I'll put the links both on the audio and the video. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
So that's all for the Podfather. You'll find all the episodes. Podfather.me. You can scan the QR code. You'll find my 6 podcasts. Go to roycollin.com. Or if you're looking for a virtual assistant, as we discussed, go to va.world. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and make sure you check out Kevin's podcast. Give him a 5-star rating as well and share with your friends. Until next week, take care.